Welcome, everyone. We're really excited to have Belldon Colme with us today, who has an amazing story to share and a very inspirational one at that. So, could you take us back to around, I think it was 2004, 2005, and kind of take us through what happened in your life? It's a really crazy story.
Yeah, yeah, it was, especially since 2 weeks before that story began, I got a clean bill of health from my doctor.
Wow.
And I love that. We'll talk more about what a clean bill of health means these days. But when I was 39 years old, I woke up on my kitchen floor
Hmm.
and really had no idea what I was doing there. Looking at the bottom of my cabinets, I could hear things going on, but not really clear, make out what they are. It's covered with wires. I really wasn't sure what that was all about. But that was my first heart attack. I had fainted with that heart attack and woke up. And as I was on my way to the hospital, it became more and more clear. But that was my first of three.
Wow.
And leading into that was just kind of normal, or at least what we think of normal these days. I worked, I ate at the food truck every day. I did business at Beer 30, making contracts with my building contractors and just doing the normal stuff. And all of a sudden, here I am with a heart attack. When I had that first one, they gave me the medications, they gave me the exercise plan, they gave me the diet plan, referred me to a nutritionist. And I'm not going to say nothing happened from that. I did lose some weight and I got some positive things going that way, but I never felt better. I never felt like I was getting better. And
Hmm.
sure enough, I had a second heart attack after that. And it was after my second one that I realized if I was going to come out of this, because the language was changing, I was being given a shelf life and nobody's putting years on it, but I was being told that this was going to deteriorate and
Hmm.
this was going to be my eventuality. I'm 39 years old for crying out loud.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so it became really, really clear that if anything was going to come out of this, I was going to have to find it. So I remember one day sitting in my living room on the couch with a cup of coffee. And when I'm looking at that black abyss, that's exactly what it reminded me of is where my life was at that point in time. And I struggled. I really, really struggled with what to do. And the only thing I could come up with, and this was probably the engineer in me from all those years in construction, but the only thing I could come up with is I need to find out how this works.
Hmm.
If I could find out how my body worked, maybe, just maybe, there was a way I could work with it. And so I started diving into the body sciences and really centered on cellular biology because that made sense. How do my cells work?
Hmm.
And biochemistry. And it didn't take very long to start realizing that almost everything I had ever learned about how my body works and how food works was complete and total BS. I mean, it wasn't just off the mark, it wasn't even close to how my body worked. And as I started finding out how it worked, I did start learning how to work with it. And I created a simple way to deal with food and make sure I was getting everything that I needed every day. And from that, was able to reverse type 2 diabetes in about 3.5 months. I lost 105 pounds in 5.5 months. And
Wow.
by the end of 2 years, by 2006, my cardiologist was taking me off the last of my heart disease medications. I had completely licked heart disease. I'm never going to forget that day, too,
Hmm.
because my cardiologist told me that day, he said, Belden, I don't want to take you off of this medication because I don't
Mhm.
trust what you did. And I said, okay, well, let's look at this a different way. If I came into your office today, you've never seen me before. Is there anything in me that would make you prescribe me this? And he said, no, honestly, there's not. And I said, awesome. And I promised him, I said, if anything goes sideways, promise you I'll go back on it, but let's give it a shot. And so he did. And that was 18 years ago. I've stayed disease free that 18 years. I've never gained the weight back. And I've got energy pushing 60 that I couldn't dream of when I was 39 years old. And it's just such an amazing place to be now. And it's the basis of what I do. I mean, there's really no choice when you experience something like this. There's no choice but to accept the calling and help people know about it.
Amazing. I'm like nodding along the whole way through this because your story very much mimics my experience. I was diagnosed with MS and it was the same kind of
Mm.
thing. And then I found nutrition, was able to reverse everything. And my doctor was like, "You're playing Russian roulette with your health." And it was like, yeah, but I have to do something. Similar to what you said, I realized I had to take this inside of myself rather than handing my power away to everyone else, expecting someone was going to fix me. That's amazing. What were some, did you have any challenges while you were going through your two-year journey of reversing heart disease and diabetes?
This is kind of fascinating because my big challenges came later
Okay.
when I was looking death in the face. You kind of have a special kind of motivation,
Hmm.
right? You're going to do one of two things. You're either going to accept it, and if you accept it, you're going to prepare yourself mentally for it, and then you'll walk that path and you'll be fine. Or you're not going to accept it. And if you're not going to accept it, you're going to do everything in your power, and you have a high degree of motivation. And while I was going through that part of the process, it really was so much easier than I imagined it would be, right? I imagined I was going to have to do all these crazy things and jump through all these hoops. And really, it was just getting the right things in my body, keeping the wrong things out, and getting the right balance. The challenges came after I'd met that goal, after I'd reversed disease, after I'd gotten weight off, after I was feeling amazing. Then I got hit with just incredible cravings, just the worst ever. And I started getting hit with emotional eating. Every time I would feel stress, every time I would feel discouragement, here came that old thing. And I'm going to say, I had the sabotaging voices in the head. Nobody ever
Hmm.
likes to talk about them, but I know you know what I'm talking about. And those voices were arguing in my head. And every single time I would start failing towards the one that was sabotaging my efforts. So when I started down that path, I gained some of my weight back, not a lot because I knew I didn't want to go there.
Hmm.
But when I started gaining it back and I started seeing all of the effort go sideways, and I didn't want to go back to the disease states I was in before, I changed the rabbit holes I was diving down. It changed the things I was studying because I found out how my body worked, and it made all the difference in the world. I wanted to know how my thinking works, how my emotions work. Why do I have these voices in my head? Where are the words coming from? Why are they saying what they're saying? How
Hmm.
does all of this work? And when I started diving down those rabbit holes, it was even more fun still and more enlightening and more eye-opening, the things that we should be taught in school about how we work, because this is the connection
Hmm.
of your mind, your body, and your spirit. And we're not taught that way. It's like you've got doctors saying it's all about the body, it's all about the physics. And you've got religious leaders saying, accept Jesus into your life and all of your problems are going to go away. And then you've got all the thought people that are like, think and grow rich, thinking it's going to fix everything. And everybody struggles when they try these things, right? Because all three of them have to be in alignment. This is
Hmm.
where those voices are coming from. Your mind has a voice, your spirit has a voice, your body has a voice. And if you're not in alignment, those voices aren't in alignment. And so learning these connections, not in the woohoo way, I'm a scientist, I'm not a woohoo guy, but learning how these things work and being able to, again, work with them and bring myself into alignment allowed me to not just fight the cravings went away, not fight the voices in my head. The
Hmm.
voices in my head are saying the same thing now.
Hmm.
And I can share some of that with you guys if you like, because this distilled for me the same as my body distilled into, a very specific way of eating that gave me everything I needed. The study I did on body, mind, and spirit all came down to a 7-word question. And I literally now, 18 years later, still ask myself this question every single day, sometimes several times a day, just to keep it all on track. But for me, and I've watched a lot of clients experience this in the same progression, see the benefit of what they're doing, and then lose it to emotional eating. You
Hmm.
got to hit those things. You can't ignore them.
I was curious with everything you were saying there, when you were diving into learning how the body actually works and then connecting that with working with the body as far as your healing journey. Was there a certain moment, like an aha moment, as far as connecting those pieces for you?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. There definitely was. And it was a forehead smack moment. There were actually three steps going into it. One of the first things that I really began to see is that metabolism is not remotely what we've been told it is.
Hmm.
We've been told metabolism is this fat burning furnace, right? That's what you hear all the time.
Mhm.
You burn all your calories. That's what your metabolism is there for. And it couldn't be further from the truth. Metabolism does two things. It takes things apart and puts things together. It takes your food apart, puts it together into the cells of your body. When I read that, I'm like, I knew this. I mean, I think we inherently know this is true, but I'm like, I'm made out of what I eat.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, it's beat over our head all the time that food is just energy. You're going to burn it all as energy. Well, heck no, I'm being made out of it. And I came from a construction background, and that really hit me hard because you have wood full of mold and worms.
Hmm.
I'll burn that all day long. We
Yep.
used to take the rotted wood on the job site and literally build a bonfire and roast marshmallows, right? But would I build a house out of it?
No.
Mm-mm.
Not a prayer, right? So here I have all this stuff that I'm putting in my body, and I'm not afraid of it because it's all getting burned up as energy. But do I really want my cells to be built out of it? And that was the first step towards really waking up. But that step didn't really tell me what to do. It just told me what I was doing was wrong.
Hmm.
The second thing that really hit me was when I learned what energy really is in the body, and that it has nothing to do with your macros. Nothing at all. It lives in your cells. It's your birthright to be an energetic person. And if we just stop stopping it,
Hmm.
we can have amazing energy if we just stop getting in the way of it. But that didn't tell me what to do either. When I dove into the biochemistry, this is where it really was a faceplant moment because chemistry can be super, super complex and nobody wants to think about it because of that,
Yeah.
right? I'm pretty sure the whole engineering class of studies is just there for people who fail organic chemistry because it's hard. It's really, really hard. But the thing is, it all distills down to three really simple rules. And when you do this, it really was the moment of waking up for me. The three rules of chemistry are to put the right things in the beaker to get the reaction you want.
Hmm.
Makes sense, right?
Yeah.
And first, let me ask if we're in agreement there. Everything happening in here is chemical reactions and responses. Is that true?
Mhm.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And I've asked that for 18 years, literally from doctors and hospital staff all the way down to fourth graders. I've never had a single person say, oh, no, that's not true. We're not
Yeah.
concerned. We know it. We know
Yeah.
we are. The right things in the beaker to get the reaction that we want. The second rule of chemistry is to keep the wrong things out of the beaker because they pollute the reaction, and either we're not going to get the response that we want, or we're going to get some other response that we really didn't want.
Mhm.
Yeah, definitely.
And when you put it in those terms, it makes sense, right?
Mhm.
And we have to get the right balance of things because in chemistry, the recipe matters. Imagine you're making a cake and you're dyslexic today, so you put
Uh-oh.
in 2.5 cups of salt and a teaspoon of sugar. What kind of
Oh,
cake you
goodness.
get, right? And not
Not
just is it
good.
going to taste, yeah, and not only is it going to taste really bad, but it's going to be flat, it's going to be rubbery. It's
Hmm.
like the whole chemistry of that cake is going to change. So the recipe matters, the balance of things matters. Right things in, wrong things out, right balance. And it hit me in this moment, not only is this kind of easy when you think about it,
Hmm.
but it's a law of physics.
Yeah.
It's every much as a law of physics as gravity is a law of physics. And I ask people when I speak these days, would you go to the edge of the Grand Canyon where it's a mile down and step off the edge? Well, of course not. You're going to fall and die. Well, what about if you did that on cheat day? What if you just went and stepped off the edge of the Grand Canyon only on Sundays? I mean, you followed the law
Hmm.
6 days a week. Why can't you just step off on Saturday? Well, of course you wouldn't, but we
Crazy.
do that with our body.
Oh, in moderation, it's fine. You can step off
We,
once a week. No big deal,
it,
right?
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Or even step off just a little bit. That'll be
Mhm.
okay, right? No, we actually protect ourselves and we stand way back from the edge because we
Mhm.
understand that that is a law of physics. This is a law of physics too. And if we follow it, amazing things happen. If we don't follow it, less amazing things happen. So when I developed what I call the 4 jars food plan, it was with that in mind.
Mhm.
How can we make a very simple way
Hmm.
that people can get the right stuff in, keep the wrong things out, and get the right balance? Because that really was my wake up moment. That was the thing I had to do if I wanted to get my health back.
Amazing. And we're
Mhm.
so conditioned to believe from society, from the diet industry, which is worth billions of dollars, that, yeah, you just need to eat less calories. And it's unfortunate the way that that's become because it's focusing on the number versus what
Absolutely.
nutrients that you're consuming. And I mean, we mostly work with a lot of women who are kind of the perimenopause, 40 plus age, and that's like such a huge focus. I need to hit my macros. I need to get under my calories. But if you're not putting the right things in, I love the analogy you gave with would you build a house with crappy materials? And you wouldn't because it's not going to be strong. It's not going to last well. So that's a really very interesting way to position it. But what inspired you to create nutritional fitness?
So, as I mentioned, when I found out that it wasn't that hard
Hmm.
to turn around major diseases, I was told, by the way, that once I have diabetes, in fact, they called me a diabetic. I resist this, by the
Hmm.
way.
Amazing.
They call never identify as your disease. Anybody listening, do not
Agreed.
ever
Yes.
identify as a disease. You have diabetes, you're not a diabetic. But I was told we don't really know for sure what causes it and we can't heal it.
There's no cure,
No
is one
cure.
of the worst pieces of advice.
Well, especially since it was the first one to go away, right? And it only took
Hmm.
3.5 months. And I've been helping people do this for 18 years. I'm not a fluke. This is
Hmm.
not that difficult. But when I realized this and that the knowledge wasn't hard to take in, you didn't have to learn advanced sciences. I've already done that for you. You just need to have some common sense. And when you see yourself getting traction, when you see yourself going the right way physiologically, and then you feel yourself getting pulled the wrong way emotionally.
Hmm.
This is one thing, and my primary client is very, very similar to yours. And it's super important to realize that it's not because you're of a certain age. It's not because you've had babies. It's not because you're postmenopausal or premenopausal or perimenopausal. It's not because of any of that.
Yep.
It's 100% what we're putting in our body, and we have control over
Hmm.
all of it. So there's 3 things you have to do. One is to get the food right.
Hmm.
And it's not that hard. And it's the reason that I changed my entire career to start helping people with this is you have a right to know what's going on, right? The second thing is when you're being torn by emotional eating, stop working more on the body. I see this all the time where emotional eating is making somebody fail over and over and over again. So what do? Well, I'm going to go work out at the gym harder. Well, okay, but that's not doing anything for the emotional situation here.
Right.
I'm going to go and try the new diet. All right, that's cool, but it's not doing anything for the real
Distracting.
problem, right? I'm going to go try Ozempic because Oprah's doing Ozempic and sells it through Weight Watchers.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not doing anything, right? When you know you've got a specific problem, address that problem and don't be afraid to talk about it. Nobody wants to talk about the voices in their head,
Hmm.
but we all have them.
Hmm.
And so helping people through all of this process, not just the food, but through nutritional fitness and through Club Lit, we help people through the entire process: body, spirit, mind alignment, getting the food right, getting the voices in your head saying what you need them to say, and walk through the entire process. And nobody's doing it. So it was almost, and I say nobody loosely, of course there are, but in the grand scheme of doctors and hospitals and diets and pharma and all this garbage, the people who are actually talking this way are just a drop in the bucket.
Hmm. Yeah.
and we need more of them. So I really didn't feel I had a lot of choice but to start nutritional fitness, later start Club Lit and help. I don't have a choice.
I love the simplicity of it. It's the always the best way to go, the simplest way. Like what's in the body that shouldn't be there and what does the body need to support it? And you're adding in the balance component of it because we're essentially put together where there's a certain ratio for everything and everything like God made us perfectly. When we're messing with it with all the medications and all the other things that we're being told to use. And then that's when the problems start. So
And
I, I love how simple it is.
and look around because people are getting very myopic, short-sighted. And it's
Mm-hmm.
not because there's anything wrong with people, it's that everything in our environment is teaching them
Yep.
to be short-sighted. The further we go down big food and big pharma, what
Mm-hmm.
is happening around us? Right now, 48% of people in America have some form of diabetes, type 1, type 2, or prediabetes.
Mm-hmm.
48%. By
Yep.
next year, they're saying half the country will have some form of diabetes. You go back 60 years, 70 years, diabetes existed, but it was rare. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't something every family was afflicted with. Every family today has diabetes in their immediate family. You don't even have to go to the extended family. Look at what's happening, and they keep trying to push us farther and farther and farther down the big food and big pharma hole.
Mm-hmm.
And the further we go down that hole, look
Mm-hmm.
around at what's happening. And you've got all these doctors that are in their 30s and 40s telling you all the things you need to do for longevity. Yet the further and further and further down those holes we go, what's actually happening in the real world? And we need to look at that and we need to realize that the newest thing isn't the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
People have been on this planet for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, and they lived healthier without the newest thing,
It's so true.
right? We need to get back in touch with those roots.
So true. And there's so many reasons. Like people hear diabetes and the assumption is that it just has to do with food. But there's so many other things that impact us, like the stresses. You hear stress as well. You think, oh, okay, there was a stressful situation at home or there was a stressful situation at work. But it's like, what about the devices? All of the EMFs that are having stresses on our body, all of the chemicals and toxins in our
Yep.
environment, all of the chemicals and toxins in our food, in our water, all of the, yes, emotional stress is a thing, but physical stress as well. So you're stressed out, you're not able to lose weight, then you go and you exercise more, you diet more. Both of those are stresses on the body. And it's just like bombarding the body with stressor after stressor after stressor. And when we're in a stressed state, our body increases blood sugar, which can lead to so many other problems. And I think it's so powerful what you're talking about, how we need to take a step back from this very go, 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 I wear the busy badge kind of lifestyle that our society is now, and realize that this is not helping us in terms of health, in terms of longevity as well, right? When you create more stress in the system, you're going to create more metabolic problems, more blood sugar, more insulin resistance, and it's just a vicious cycle. So yeah, very interesting.
You hit on some points there that are super important. And if I can reframe them a little bit, because I
Sure.
think people get bogged down when we talk about all the things that affect our health.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's easy for people to get so overwhelmed. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
I can't do anything about, so many of this. Where do I start? What do I do? But one of the things that you hit on is the diet and the exercise. And just think about that in a logical way for a moment.
Hmm.
In order to lose weight, I need to work harder and eat less. Eat less, work harder. Now, look around outside of people because somehow we forget that we're physical objects in the world. We're not this, right? If you look at your car, are you going to drive harder and put less gas in? Does that even make sense?
Mm-mm. Leads to
Right?
trouble.
Yeah, there's literally no other mechanism, animal, or plant that we would say make it work harder and give it less to work with. We would never say that. And yet that's what we're trying to do. And we're wondering why it doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
Work harder, eat less doesn't even make sense. The whole concept of calories doesn't make sense when you really think about it.
No.
Somebody told me one time calories are energy, and I said, why, if I eat 5,000 calories, do I only want to sleep? If calories are energy, why does too many calories make me lethargic? Why? And why, if people fast and don't eat anything, do they get more energy?
Yeah.
Explain this to me if calories are energy, right? There's a lot of other mechanisms in the body that make all of this work, but people need to really, like you said, rein it back, come back to the simple stuff. What can I control? Well, I can control what goes into my body. I can control that. Let's start there. And then when you start feeling better, because you will, when you start feeling better from that thing you can control, then you're gaining energy, and you're gaining mental energy, and you're gaining will to take the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. So I really like the thought of just take a step back in time. What is the thing that's happening that you can control, and start there and work out. Diabetes has another component, if you guys don't mind if I share this, because
Sure.
this is, yeah, this is something, there's a kind of like a little mini war brewing on right now. If you follow health news, back in April of 2023, the World Health Organization came out and said, stop eating non-sugar sweeteners. Did you guys catch that?
No, I
I
didn't
don't think
actually.
so. No.
It was a World Health Organization directive. They said stop eating non-sugar sweeteners because number one, they don't have any long-term benefit for weight.
Hmm.
And second, it appears that they're a direct contributor to metabolic diseases, metabolic disorders. What are those? Heart disease, diabetes, irritable bowel syndrome, all kinds of things fall under metabolic disorders. And this comes from a new look at the science of interoception. Now, we've known about interoception for 100 and some years, but interoception is the interplay between your mind and your organs,
Mm-hmm.
and how the mind controls the organs and how they communicate back and forth. And it's not something that's easy to measure, and therefore science doesn't really like it. Science likes stuff you can measure and quantify and put out there and say, boom, this causes that, right? But interoception is this science of how the mind regulates the body, and non-sugar sweeteners have been on the radar for some years because they're designed to trick your body into thinking that it's sugar.
Yep.
In every way, it's designed to trick your body, and that's exactly what it does. It's successful. Now, what does the brain do when the brain believes that there's sugar coming into the body? There's two actual responses in insulin, and this was, again, an eye-opening thing when I started studying diabetes specifically. There is a preliminary insulin response that happens before you even swallow. If you have the taste of sweet in your mouth, there's a very small insulin response in response to that. And the reason for that is sugar dissolves right under your tongue. It is one of the few things that can go into your bloodstream right here. This, by the way, is where they put digitalis if you're having a heart attack, because it'll dissolve straight into your bloodstream.
Mm-hmm.
So glucose can dissolve straight into your bloodstream. There's a small insulin response for that. And 2.5 hours later, almost like clockwork, then comes the major insulin response. Not because sugar is in your bloodstream, but because it's coming into your bloodstream. Your body is proactive. And no sugar comes. Your brain thought there was sugar, your brain put out an insulin response, and no sugar comes. So now you have an insulin spike, which is a very dangerous thing. And you have the liver creating glucose, not because you need energy, but because you have an insulin spike that we now need to manage. And the body begins to try and regulate differently, because every time it regulates this way, it's incorrect, it's wrong. So the brain starts trying to re-regulate. Diabetes is primarily caused by a dysregulation of insulin because of the response, the connection between the brain and the body. Now, if the brain successfully gets the pancreas to produce less insulin, and now you eat real sugar, what happens? Now you don't have an insulin response, and you've got a sugar spike, and now the pancreas has to catch up. Now, you get enough of this over time, your brain literally doesn't know what to do when it tastes sweet. No matter what it does is wrong. And so the body begins to ramp up in three steps. One is you've got this constant reactive response where the liver is producing glucose because of a insulin spike, not because you need sugar. So you get elevated blood sugar that your body doesn't need. The second step is when this begins to happen and it's dysregulated almost every time, your cells stop accepting sugar.
Mhm.
Why? Well, because if you have too much glucose in a cell, it will die. So it takes what it needs for energy and then shuts down the insulin receptor.
Hmm.
When it shuts down the insulin receptor, the blood sugar is locked where? In your bloodstream. So then it begins to build up and up and up until you become full
Diabetic.
on diabetes.
Hmm.
And all of this happened not because you ate too much sugar. Now, please, I'm not telling people they should eat 22
Yeah.
tablespoons of sugar a day. Okay, please, no, right? We're supposed to have a small amount. But this didn't all happen because you ate sugar. It happened because we ate a non-sugar sweetener.
Mhm.
We ate something that tricked the body. And this is the reason I absolutely hate the term body hack,
Mhm.
because your body's designed to work a certain way. And if you work with it,
Mhm.
physical laws, right? If you work with it, great things happen. If you don't work with it and you try to trick it and you try to fool it, you're going to succeed. And now it's not working right.
Yeah. And it's so true in so many ways when we look at medication as well,
Mhm.
right? Like everything is energy in the body. And so if you have symptoms, the body's trying to send you a message, hey, there's something wrong, there's something that needs your support. And a medication comes in and it like shuts off that signal, shuts off that message. It's like, shh, we're fine. I don't need you to communicate to me. And
Yeah.
the body's always trying to heal itself. As you said, as we say all the time, we need to figure out what's getting in the way or what's missing if you're not
Mm-hmm.
able to do that. And very similar. So, yeah, interesting hearing you talk about the sugar. And anytime we try and trick the body, good things don't come from that. So, very interesting. And it's true. We're taught that, oh, you shouldn't eat sugar. It's going to cause you to gain weight. It's going to cause fat storage. And so, here, just use this sugar-free sweetener. But I didn't hear that the World Health Organization, I think you said, are saying to stop using these things. So that's very
Yeah,
interesting
the WHO, and this was last April, if you want to search it, April
for sure.
2023. And the WHO wasn't the only one.
Mhm.
There were a lot of independent studies on the different types of non-sugar sweeteners. Erythritol got hit really, really hard because erythritol has now been directly linked to heart disease. Sucralose got hit really, really hard. Not that there's anything in sucralose that's damaging, but when you digest it, the metabolite is a mutagen. It actually changes the nature of your DNA of living beings. It's a horrible thing. What was the other one? Starts with an A. There's another one that got hit.
Allulose?
No,
No.
it'll come to me when it doesn't matter anymore. But one after the other, and then of course the beverage industry
Hmm.
came out really, really hard trying to defend everything and
Of course.
started entire websites with sciencey sounding titles to try and convince you that all of this stuff is really okay. And that's why I was saying there's kind of a little mini war going on right now in science with all of this. But the bottom line to it is you don't need to understand all of that. You
Hmm.
don't need to understand any of that. All you need to understand is that this stuff cannot exist without a factory. And anything that cannot exist without a factory probably doesn't belong in your body.
Mhm. Again, keeping it simple.
Exactly. Stop
Yeah.
right there. I love the way you said it, Kate. If there's anything wrong with your body, it's just a matter of what's missing or what shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
Mhm. We've already touched on some misconceptions around health. I think you already mentioned as far as age, because we hear it all the time from clients. We hear it all the time from people we talk to. Oh, that's just my age now, and these things are starting to happen. My joints hurt, headaches, whatever the case is. Are there other common misconceptions that you hear or you come across?
Oh gosh, where do you start?
Where do you start? Just something we can shift perspective for people and show them that what you're hearing is not gospel, if you will.
Yeah. Um, First of all, I'll reiterate that one again because it is probably the most heard, especially for women. I mean, it's criminal what women are being told in medicine these days. Everything you're just supposed to expect to fall apart. That's just how you're built. I'm sorry, right?
Mhm.
That's absolutely insane. The myth of fake foods, and it's not just sugar. There are fake fats out there.
Mhm.
There are fake
Meat.
everything. I mean, we've got food out there that's literally made out of sawdust
Mhm.
and being passed as food. Um, Fake food gets into your body and your body doesn't know how to read it. And there's a simple piece of science behind fake food that you don't need to know, but I think for you know better, you do better, right? Everything in the circle of life, and we all know what the circle of life is.
Hmm.
Plants turn into animals, turn into bigger animals, turn into bigger animals, which die and turn into plants. I mean, the circle of life has been well established since forever. The reason the circle of life works is because of RNA. And I used to talk about RNA to make people's eyes glass over until COVID and we had RNA vaccines. The whole point of RNA is it tells your cells what to do with what's coming in. The RNA vaccine would tell your cells to build a specific protein to go out and fight this disease. Now, I don't want to get into whether that's right or wrong or indifferent. We'll stay out of the politics of that for a moment. But the point is, RNA is the code of life that tells every cell to do with the cells, what to do with the cells it encounters. When you eat living food, and I don't mean you can't cook your food, that's not what I mean. I mean, when you're eating real food instead of fake food, the RNA in that food is the code that tells your body what it is and what to do with it.
Hmm.
When you're eating fake food or ultra processed food, it's been completely stripped of any of the code that tells your body what to do with it. It gets into your body, and you've got a really cool organ called the duodenum right underneath your stomach. And when your food goes through the duodenum, it reads this and tells your body what to do with it. When you're putting stuff through that your body can't even recognize, has no clue what to do with it, right? Fake food is fake food being healthy for you, or for there being healthy alternatives to real food, is one of the biggest myths out there. Calories is one of the biggest myths out there. Calories are measured by literally burning food. And we determine how much energy is in food by how much it puts off when we burn it. Your body doesn't burn food. Energy works with the little small scale explosion. That's how ATP works. It touches water, it blows up. Your mitochondria absorbs the energy of that little explosion. A whole series of chemical responses that we call the Krebs cycle puts the broken up molecule back together again so it can go out and blow up again. Do you realize how much more energy is released when something blows up compared to when it burns? And yet we're
Yeah.
measuring energy based on what happens when it burns. And 3/4 of the food that you eat is being put into the cells of your body. It's not being put into energy at all. The whole idea of calories makes no sense, which is why it doesn't work for anyone except for food companies that want to keep you focused on food as energy instead of what food is really doing in your body, right? So that's a huge myth. And the reason it's such a powerful myth is it encourages people to do the dumbest thing imaginable, which is to work harder with less inputs. And that has never worked for anybody ever. So that's one
True.
of the enormous myths. And anybody that tells you for any reason, it doesn't even matter what it is, that you can't be healthy, that you have to accept disease. It's a myth by default.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's just simply not true.
So many great like analogies came to my mind when you were talking about that. I worked in retail for almost 20 years, and the experience of I want you to do more, but I'm going to give you less. I definitely have experience with that.
Take a pay cut and work for it.
Yeah.
Exactly. And also the perspective of I thought of Lego, like a giant Lego set that you're supposed to build, but I'm not going to give you instructions or a picture and go.
Oh, nice.
Which basically, yeah, when the body, it's so fascinating and you explained it so well how the duodenum actually like interprets the food that you're eating and what the body's going to do with it versus just here's a big handful of Lego. Good luck, right? So that was very, very well
Exactly.
said.
Exactly. And that leads to the myth of supplements. Here's a big handful of Legos. Your body has no clue what they are, which is why you might use a small amount of them, but you're going to pee out most of them, right? It's that same kind of thing. You're giving your body a handful of Legos with no instruction. I like
Instructions.
that. You're
Interesting.
gonna love this because I use Legos in a different analogy in my book.
I was going to ask about your book next, so perfect.
Yeah, I use Legos as an analogy of what your metabolism is doing because you have two sides to your metabolism.
Hmm.
And for God's sakes, people look up these words because if you look up metabolism on Google, you're going to get 85 billion hits on the fat burning furnace. But there's two sides to metabolism. And if you look up these, you're actually going to learn what your metabolism does. The destructive side of metabolism is called catabolism, C-A-T, abolism.
Hmm.
And in my book, I call this cat. The constructive side of your metabolism, the part that puts things together, is called anabolism, A-N-abolism. And between these two, they take things apart and put things together. And by taking things apart and putting them together, the metabolism is literally responsible for life and everything about life just by these two things, knowing what to take apart and put together. So in my book, I call these two girls Cat and Ann. And Cat takes the Lego sets apart and puts the Lego sets together. And as long as we're putting the right Lego sets in the body, Cat takes them apart. Master Builder Ann can put them into anything that your body needs. You need hormones, guess what? Your body builds those in real time.
Hmm.
And Anne is able to do that if she's got the right things to build with. But what happens if she needs to build a hormone in real time? All she has is garbage, rocks, sticks, right? There's a few Legos mixed in there,
Mhm.
but all this garbage, and she has to go sifting through this stuff to try and make a hormone. And we wonder why we have hormone imbalances and mood swings.
Yeah.
We don't have the stuff in our body to create the kind of hormone. Now, Anne's going to do the best she can with what she has. But if all you give Anne is red, blue, and brown square Legos, everything she builds is going to be pixelated and right. If you give Anne every Lego in the world, what's she going to be able to build now?
Anything.
Yeah, whatever she wants.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's going to be amazing. I mean, if you've seen kids that have access to just like a bin of Legos, look at what they make, right? It's just amazing. So we've got to get those complete Lego sets in our body, not just little bits and pieces. If we think that there's only 93 Legos that the body needs, and that's all you're going to get from supplements, there are 93 vitamins and minerals that have been identified and are supplemented. There are over 60,000 phytonutrients that we know of so far that come from real food,
Hmm.
most of them from carbohydrates, which everybody demonizes. And yet, these are Lego pieces that your body depends on and your body needs, and we can only get in real food, right? So, yeah, I love the Lego analogy. It fits in so many different ways.
It's something that's interpreted like people understand it, which is it's
Mhm.
great to make things because it is complicated, the whole system. So yeah, what's a way that we can make this? And I love how you use the names for the
Yeah.
characters in your book.
Cat and Nat. Yeah.
What is the name of your book also for anyone who wants to find it?
Yeah, I love this one. It's on Amazon and it's called No One Ever Got Fat from Calories.
Perfect. Do you have any, like, who do you work with normally? What kind of clients? Is it men, women, anybody goes? Like, what is your ideal client? Or who
So,
is your ideal client, I should say?
yeah, I know you're supposed to niche down, niche down, niche down, niche down, niche down.
That's what they
And
say.
and for marketing, that's true.
Mhm.
For marketing, it's kind of important. When it comes to care of your body, I'm here. I'm here for anybody that is not happy with the life that they lead. The primary client I've had through the years are mostly women over 40 or 45.
Mhm.
And some of them pull their husbands into this. And I love it when that happens because then we get everybody on board, start to eliminate some of the family strife. But what I've noticed about this, and I would encourage your listeners to pay attention to this because I didn't. Most of us do not take our health seriously
Mm-hmm.
until it's
Mhm.
too late,
Yep.
until we're right there. I use a house analogy for this. It's like we spend our entire life saying, oh, I can take a board out of that wall right there and my house won't fall down. So I'm going to take that board out. And I'm going to take one over there and back here and in every room of my house. And you know what? My house is still strong. And so I keep living that way, taking more and more and more boards out of my house until I finally get to that one that breaks the camel's back. I take one board out and the whole house starts to do this. And I say, oh,
Boy.
words that I'm not going to say on your show. And then I shove that board back in and I hug it really tight until my house stops shaking. And when my house stops shaking, I say, dodge the bullet. And then I stand back as though my house is strong and I
Hmm.
don't do anything until I pull that board out again and I have to go through the same thing. We never take the time to realize that the reason we're falling apart is because we spent 35 years tearing our body up cell by cell by cell, building cells out of garbage one at a time.
Mhm.
And the only way to get a life back is to go through your house and start replacing all those boards that have been taken away so that you get strength in your house again. Because here's what happened when COVID hit. You have all these people hugging the last board in their house.
Hmm.
It doesn't take much of a thump on the house to make it all fall down.
Mhm.
But people who had taken the time to make their house strong, and I'm not talking about this kind of strong, I'm talking about every cell of your body being made out of the right stuff. Those people got a few symptoms and barely even knew they had a disease. That's why
True.
you want your house to be strong, so that when something sweeps through, it
Mhm.
doesn't knock you over. Because if you're already weak, it will.
So true. I was going to ask you, like, if you could give one piece of advice for our listeners who are struggling with their health, what would it be? But you just gave gold. Is there something else? What if someone is struggling with their health? What's the first steps they could take, or what advice do you have?
The very first place to start is we are chemistry, so act like it. We're not all different. This person can't, be vegan and that person carnivore and that person airivore and that person fruitivore. It doesn't work that way. We are chemistry, and like every other animal on the planet, there is a way we are supposed to eat. And if you start eating that way and accept that if a food cannot cannot exist without a factory, that's what we're going to keep out. That alone. And as a matter of fact, just the keeping out the wrong stuff part is going to
Mhm.
make such a huge difference on your health and get you started. And if it's okay with you guys, I put this together 18 years ago into something I call the 4 jars plan. And I give the 4 jars plan out for free to everybody who wants it because I believe the world needs to have it. And I would love to give it to your listeners as well. It's on the homepage of my website, paragraph 3. It's a free download.
Awesome.
And I would love everybody to get a hold of it.
Perfect. We can include that in our show notes so everyone can find it.
Definitely.
And speaking of that, where is the best place for our audience to find you if anyone's looking to work with you or connect?
So there's 2 really cool ways to do it. One is belldoncolme.net, but that requires that you know how to spell my name.
Also be in the show notes.
Which will be in the show notes.
Yeah.
Or follow the Lit Rabbit. Club Lit, I've got it Rabbit as a mascot for Club Lit. Follow the Lit
Nice.
Rabbit will get you to my website as well, where you can find help both for the physical side and also the body, mind, spirit alignment so that you can start to get control of the emotional eating and the voices in your head.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for being on with us and sharing all of your wisdom with us, and just there's been so many little things. We'll be making clips on this to share with everybody. So there's lots for
Sure.
us to work with. So thank you so much for everything for today.
Thank,
Really appreciate it.
thank you, Amanda and Kate. It's been fun being here. You guys are awesome.
All right. So if you are looking for Belldon, please check out our show notes. We're going to put everything in there so you can find him and connect with him, because we're all trying to help the world be a healthier place. And this makes every one of us better by doing that. Let's go work with our bodies as opposed to against them and have a healthier world. So thank you again for being on with us. And we'll catch everyone on our next episode. Have a great week.